Hey there everybody, thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be taking a look at The Green Hand and Other Stories by Nicole Claveloux. Artists I've never heard of. This is out from the New York Review Comics, and I found this at Second and Charles. I was just digging around. Jack's here for the summer, so we took Jack over there as we always do, and I found this. It looked really cool. It's got an introduction by Dan Clowes. He says in the introduction, that he had found this French artist and was really, really loving her work. You can definitely see why it has this strange, dark surrealism that you get in like a velvet iron hand cast in velvet glove or whatever the hell that story's called. Some of that kind of surrealism in it. The reason I grabbed it though is because when I flipped through it, it reminded me of really early Philippe Cazat work. I really, really love Philippe Cazat's stuff in heavy metal, especially his old, like really hatchy stuff and with the intense coloration. And the art just looks so cool, and I had to grab it. And it's a really, really cool book, and I'm stunned that I've never heard of this or that I've never heard of this artist. No one ever showed me this stuff because it's beautiful. The first few stories are kind of under a subcategory called The Green Hand, and there's some short stories. I think some of this stuff must have been in heavy metal. I think they're talking about that this was in heavy metal. It very much looks, like I said, like the Kazaa stuff. Looks like some of the early Anki Bilal stuff to me. But really love the coloration, really love the strange imagery. Definitely fits right within that vibe, but it's got like a different flavor to it as well. The surrealism is a little more grounded in like the daily life and less in the huge, fantastical, like Moebius and Droulet or people like that. This spread here is from the second story that's called Black Grass. Really, again, some quite lovely imagery. I particularly like these mirrors here where there's like an airbrush effect and then some kind of opaque material put over top of it like a paint pen or something. Really, really cool effect there. Again, awesome colors throughout. This spread here, the coloring reminds me of the actually well-colored original edition of A Killing Joke, where you had those nice like purples and oranges airbrush. I'm surprised Bolin hated that so much. And it also, like Dan Clowes talks about in the introduction, he's saying it reminds him a lot of someone who has a very personal mythology, like a David Lynch. I was also thinking kind of like there's an aspect of like Terry Gilliam's Brazil in here. This is like surreal, but almost bureaucratic, more down to earth. This one obviously looks a little bit more occult. Looks a little bit more like a Kenneth Anger movie or something like that. But there is a lot of that David Lynch, Terry Gilliam-ness going on in here. This story is called Blue Funk, and it focuses more on this bird character that's hanging out with the woman from the first story. This story is called Purple Sideshow, so you can see the big cool circus environment here. So at the end of those like Green Hand stories, those are all pretty consistent in look. Then you start getting other short stories that showed up in other places, and you get some stylistic change. This first one, No Family, I love the style, especially of this first page. The color goes away a little bit in the coming pages, but this image I think is stunning, and this is such a fascinating style, working in these like really solid kind of like bent rectangular planes like that, showing everything. I would really love to see more work from this artist in this mode, but this is really the only one in here, and really it's just that one image because the rest of them turn into more like watercolored in pen drawings, whereas this looks like there was more gouache or acrylic or something opaque. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's just a certain like gouache flatness to a lot of it. Then you go into a lot of black and white work, which is really lovely, really, really well produced, like nice reproduction of the lines in here. This one is called The Little Vegetable Who Dreamed It Was a Panther. So kind of just these quirky, surreal stories. Some really intense cross-hatching here. This is called The Ninny and Her Prince Charming. This here kind of Jose Munoz vibes to me a little bit. Also, the artist Antoine Coste, who's operating today, feels a little bit like this to me. Stupid story number one, so I guess it's a dumb story. The Tale of Blondie, Dearest Doe, and Fat Kitty Cat, another one of these like super intensely crosshatched stories. This one looks like the reproduction got a little filled in dark. Reminds me quite a bit of the artist Talk Fetch. I don't know if anyone ever saw his stuff, but he was doing like self-published stuff back in the day. When was this story? That's also a really cool page right there. Really fun composition. Yeah, I couldn't find what date that other story was in quickly here. And then we have another story here where you get a lot of that cross-hatching stuff mixed with the more cartooning vibe. And this person chasing someone through the train. So that's kind of an overview of what this is. Another one that this reminds me of that people have recommended that I have taken a look at but didn't enjoy the reading, even though I enjoyed the art, was the Zanardi collection, I think was the character's name. I forget the artist's name, but some of this black and white stuff in the back reminds me of that material. So a really cool thing. Super glad I'm stumbled across this. Definitely someone offloaded some really cool books that I was able to grab in this last trip. And this is probably the coolest one just because it was something I had no idea existed. So really excited about this. If you all can find yourself a copy of this, very highly recommended. Very cool reprint. The Exile by Eric Creek is a gorgeously illustrated Viking saga of revenge. Eric Creek calls it his Viking Western. It's about a guy who's been away on the warpath and is returning home to some family troubles that have to be resolved. And this is told in just this amazing, like, kind of three-color art style that looks like old woodblock cuts or something. It's absolutely gorgeous book that you've got to pick up.